Correspondent banking. What is correspondent bank? Many of us may have little or no knowledge regarding correspondent bank and correspondent banking, through which money launderers siphoning their money and make a respondent bank responsible for the laundered transactions. Lets us know what are correspondent banking and what are respondent activities and how the cycles covers. We shall also know of a case that will clarify how correspondent banking for its operational supervisory lapse or lapses of its respondent fall victim to punishment. Correspondent banking is the provision of banking services by one bank, the correspondent bank, to another bank, the respondent bank. By establishing multiple correspondent relationships globally, banks can undertake international financial transactions for themselves and for their customers in jurisdictions where they have no physical presence. Large international banks typically act as correspondents for thousands of other banks around the world. Respondent banks obtain a wide range of services through correspondent relationships, including cash management, for example, interest-bearing accounts in a variety of currencies, international wire transfers of funds, check clearing, payable through accounts, and foreign exchange services. Before establishing correspondent accounts, banks should be able to answer basic questions about the respondent bank, including who its owners are and the nature of its regulatory oversight. Respondent banks judged to be sound credit risks may be offered a number of credit-related products, for example, letters of credit and business accounts. For credit card transactions, the services offered by a correspondent bank to smaller, less well-known banks may be restricted to non-credit, cash management services. Correspondent banking is vulnerable to money laundering for two main reasons. 1. By their nature, correspondent banking relationships create a situation in which a financial institution carries out financial transactions on behalf of customers of another institution. This indirect relationship means that the correspondent bank provides services for individuals or entities for which it has neither verified the identities nor obtained any first-hand knowledge. 2. The amount of money that flows through correspondent accounts can pose a significant threat to financial institutions because they process large volumes of transactions for their customers. This makes it more difficult to identify suspect transactions because the financial institution generally does not have the information on the actual parties conducting the transaction to know whether they are unusual or their customers. This makes it more difficult to identify suspect transactions because the financial institution generally does not have the information on the actual parties conducting the transaction to know whether they are unusual. Additional risks incurred by the correspondent bank include the following. Although the correspondent bank may be able to learn what laws govern the respondent bank, determining the degree and effectiveness of the supervisory regime to which the respondent is subject may be much more difficult. This can make it difficult to determine the level of risk associated with developing a relationship with a respondent bank. Determining the effectiveness of the respondent bank's AML controls can also be a challenge. Although requesting compliance questionnaires will provide some comfort, the correspondent bank is still very reliant on the respondent doing its own due diligence on the customers it allows to use the correspondent account. Some banks offering correspondent facilities may not ask their respondents about the extent to which they offer such facilities to other institutions, a practice known as nesting. This means the correspondent bank is even further removed from knowing the identities or business activity of these sub-respondents or even the types of financial services provided. A case study for better understanding. In March 2015, U.S. regulators closed Florida-based North Dade Community Development Federal Credit Union for willful violations of the USA Patriot Act, the Bank Secrecy Act, BISA, and provisions to its credit union charter and bylaws. The credit union had only one office staffed by 5 people. The credit union's purpose was to provide basic financial services to its members from the local community. However, FinCEN observed that the credit union had correspondent banking relationships with money services businesses (MSBs) in high-risk jurisdictions in Latin America and the Middle East. In 2013, the credit union processed approximately $55 million in cash orders, $1 billion in outgoing wire transfers, $5 million in returned checks, and $985 million in remote deposit. Capture for its Ms. B clients, FinCEN stated that these funds could have been linked to money laundering or supporting terrorist organizations. Moreover, FinCEN identified the activity was not expected business behavior of a small credit union like Northdade and led to substantial AML or CF compliance failures and violations, including willfully violating its visa program, record-keeping, reporting, and requirements. As a result, Northdade consented to a $300,000 civil money penalty. Subsequently, the National Credit Union Association (NCUA), the bank's financial regulator, liquidated Northdade after determining it had violated various provisions of its charter, bylaws, and federal regulations. From this above case, we could have learned that how a financial institution was fined and punished for willful violation of BISA AML acts and thus failure to its responsibility of respondent relationship with the correspondent banks in the high-risk jurisdictions. Hope the listener could have understand what is correspondent and respondent bank and what their responsibilities are. When a correspondent banking relationship is established without proper money laundering relationship checks, the respondent bank may be prone to be in the punishment. If this video seems useful, please subscribe my channel and help me to share more videos for your learning and be the first to know what are new. Thank you.